Hey everyone, I have a pretty fun project today. We are going to make a ADSB receiver. ADSB is basically it's how planes talk to the ground and how air traffic controllers they talk back to planes. It's just information that's passed back and forth through radio signals. Um, it's really cool, and you can build a ADSB receiver for pretty cheap. I'm not going to go through all of what ADSB does, but basically, planes have ADSB transmitters and they relay their position, their speed, their altitude, things like that down to the ground. And we can use that information to create basically a simulated radar map and show what planes are flying in the sky above us. It's super awesome, and it's a very fun project. But again, I'm not going to go over all of that too much. This video is just going to be what components I chose and just putting it together. So if you want to read more about it, I have a very in-depth guide on the forum, and I will link that in the description below. But for now, let's get started with the hardware. So I chose a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. I just had it laying around, but it's also nice because it has a very wide variety of accessories and components that you can add to it. For us, we're just really need the USB ports and the wireless functionality. So it's got wireless on board. It works great for this project. It's also nice that we have a huge case selection, so we can just kind of pick whatever we want for cases. I really would recommend getting a case for this, especially if you're going to put it outside or like underneath a deck or a patio. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So yeah, 3B Plus, these are about 35 bucks. Next we have a 32 gig micro SD card. I think you can get away with 16 gig or 8 gig, but 32 gig, I think they're about 10 bucks. This is a 32 gig I had laying around, so I really would recommend a high write endurance one like the Samsung Pro edition. This is just an Evo. But yeah, if you got one laying around, use it. If not, pick up one of the high write endurance ones. I think they're 10 bucks for a 32 gig, and that will be plenty. So we got that. Here we have our case. Haven't unboxed this guy yet, but I have built one. This is the Stratix case in clear. It's the V3 model, and the V3 model has a fan on the top for your Raspberry Pi and a fan on the bottom which blows inwards for your SDRs, which I haven't covered yet. The SDR is a software-defined radio. We're going to be using two of them. One for the primary 1098 megahertz channel and one for the secondary older 978 megahertz channel. This case is, I think, $17 on Amazon. It comes in black, clear, or white. I think clear is coolest because you can see all the LEDs and make sure the fans are spinning and all that. I think it just looks nice too. But on the bottom, you have suction cup mounts. You can see one's already kind of punched out here. There's another one here. There's 6 of them. So you can just suction cup this to like a window or, I don't know, a piece of metal or something like that. And let's see, this part slides open. So this is where your USB ports go. And here we have all of the accessories. Here's some rubber feet if you want to strap a battery bank to the back of this. You put the rubber feet between this and the battery bank. Here's our suction cups. There's 6 of them. I'm gonna put these in the box. Put these rubber feet in the box too. And here's our bottom intake fan. This one is USB. It doesn't use the GPIO like the top one, but it is pretty much the same fan, and it's 5 volt. So this fan is intake, and here you can see the openings for the Ethernet and then 4 USB ports. And then you can remove this top section just by sort of gently pinching gently pinching the case. And inside we have our Velcro strap if you want to attach a battery bank. And then a couple mounts for tripod and GoPro mount. But it's nice. It includes all of that for 17 bucks. This case is freaking sweet. And here's our top fan. It's basically the same fan, but it's GPIO instead of USB. So that's our case. I don't think we need any screws to put the Pi in the case, but we'll get to there in a second. I'm just going to set sort of all of this stuff aside because I'm going to reopen that again later. All right. Next, we have our SDRs. This is the Nooelec, Nooelec Nano 2 kit. And this kit covers both bands that we talked about earlier, the 1090 and the 978. And you can see here's the device Nano 2 and the calibration. This is the 978. And here's the 1090. And then we have 4 antenna options. A couple longer ones and a couple shorter ones. We have our antenna leads if we want to combine both into one, which I do not recommend. There's really no reason to do that. You can use that connector. And then our single leads, which is what we're going to use for this. So we'll keep those out. And we have a couple tip conversions. So if we need to change from SMA to TS9, we can do that, but we don't need those. So we'll set those aside. We will be using the longer antennas, so I'll keep those out. I'll put the shorter ones in the box. And other than that, just real quickly, we have an antenna extension with magnetic base. This is about 15 bucks. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to cover. The Nano 2 kit is 40 bucks. The Nano 3 kit, which is slightly better, is 60. But I really don't think it's worth the cost. I think the Nano 2 is just fine. So I would stick with that one, just save the extra 20 bucks. Antenna extension with magnetic base. So I think it's like 10 feet, 15 bucks. And I would use this on your primary, on your 1098 megahertz. And then you can stick it on like a railing or like the roof of an RV or something like that. This is super handy to have. Not necessary though. And then the other recommended piece is a large suction cup with tripod mount. You can use this if you want, or you can use the included suction cups. It's really up to you. This, for me, makes it a little bit nicer, and it's way easier to detach, and it actually holds much better too. And you can position it kind of however you want. So I like this guy a lot. I think this is 13 bucks. So anyway, we'll set that aside for now. We don't need to do anything with those really in this video, but I did want to show you that. So just starting to build our Pi here. Really what we need is the bottom part of the case and our Raspberry Pi. And it's really, really simple. It's completely toolless if you want it to be. You can screw the Pi in if you want, but it's really not necessary because there's little plastic tabs that hold it in. So basically all you have to do is just click in one side of the Pi and that's it. It just kind of sits there like that. You can check that everything's mounted flushly in the USB ports down here, and everything's mounted flush on the side ports. One thing I didn't cover that I just realized, you do need a good power adapter. I would recommend a 5-volt 3 amp. If you can't get a 3 amp, I would at minimum recommend a 2.5 amp. We are going to be using a lot of USB power through this, so a good power supply is necessary. But yeah, you can pick those up really anywhere. I think there's one in the guide for 10 bucks. So it's a 5-volt 3 amp with a little power switch. Yeah, so now that we've installed the Pi, I guess you can do this before or after. It doesn't really matter. For me, this fan being intake causes a lot of noise. It is way louder as an intake than it is as an exhaust, because the intake of the fan is pulling against this grill, and it just really just makes a lot of noise, and it's not as efficient. But it does blow directly onto the USB ports where the SDRs will live. So that is nice, but due to the design of the case and the airflow is slightly restricted, you have these vents that if you flip the fan, it will actually pull air directly across the SDRs. So what I did with my other one, I have the exact same setup already installed. You just pull this fan out, and we'll flip this guy around. It's a little bit nicer to put the wire on the left side, and then just flip that guy around, and then we're going to plug it into the bottom rightmost port. You can just kind of tuck the wire down underneath so it's not in the way of anything. And just be careful with these little connectors. They're a little bit, not really exposed, but they could be a little fragile. So just be careful with those guys there. So anyway, fan situation sorted. This one's already set to exhaust as well. And I've been running this one for days. I ran it outside in the heat, and it's been totally fine in this fan setup. So don't worry about that. For me, the noise is just, it's so much better with that, with this setup. So we got our antenna leads. All right, so we need the SDRs. Actually, you can put the micro SD card in now if you want. It just kind of slots in key on the left side like this, right here. That's it. So we have our SDRs. We're going to look for the 1091 first. I'm sorry if that's a little blown out. We're going to look for the 1091 first. And due to the way that the Pi numbers its ports, we're going to use the 1090 on the very top rightmost port. Now, one thing I do want you to notice about these, make sure we plug it in the right way. Look how wide that is. There's no way that another SDR is going to fit next to it. And it's actually so tall that another SDR will not fit below it either. And even if it did, you really wouldn't want to put it below because of the heat. These things put out an insane amount of heat for how small they are. So the one downside of the Nano 2, where the Nano 3 does fix this, but again, it's $20 more, you have to pull this casing off. And it's super easy. Usually I can just do it by thumbnail. Let's see if I can. Yeah, there we go. So you have to pull the casing off. And it's not going to damage it. You can put the casing back on if you have an issue or one of these dies or something like that. You need to send it back. You can just put the casing right back on. But yeah, you do have to pull it off. But there's plenty of clearance now. So that's the one. They give you a little sticker usually. Yeah, a little sticker in the bag. What I like to do, I don't like to stick them on the SDR itself, because if you do that, the heat will just make it fall off. So just take the sticker and I will put it on the USB port. So we got our 1090 up there. Just like that. All right. So now for our 978. I'm actually just going to put the sticker on. I got it in my hand. So there's our 978 sticker. Pull this other guy apart. The nice thing about these Nano 2s is that they're already pre-serialized, so you don't have to run a special command to do that. And you can run a command to see what the serials are, but you really don't need to because of the way that I have the software set up. And I don't know if I'll cover the software in another video, but the software will be completely covered in the text guide that it's linked in the description. So I'll cover all the serialization, everything you need to do to get both of these working. A lot of the guides are just the 1090 or just the 978. But with my guide, basically both run, and then yeah, they work great. So that's our setup here for the most part. That's it for the bottom case. And for the top case, you have a couple options for antenna. Actually, this one's a little different than my other one. So your two antenna holes are here. I think my other one has antenna holes on the side, but either way, I use these anyway. The best way to prepare that is take a little flathead like this guy, and you can kind of punch out these antenna holes. It's kind of nice that they don't pre-punch them for you, but it's also kind of a pain in the ass. Okay, there's one. All right. So just pull this little piece of plastic out. Do the next one. There's 4 little plastic tabs basically holding this little circle in, and you just have to break through the tabs. So our antenna leads are TS9 on this end, which is this end. So they're TS9 male, TS9 female, and these are SMA connectors. And you can see they have a hex nut and a hex like locking ring, like the main ring. So we need to spin these off. There's a couple retaining rings. If you have a pair of pliers, it's probably good to use them to fully torque those down once we install these. But I don't on hand right now, so I'm not going to. The other thing is when you go to put the antenna through, it might not be the easiest thing to fit. So what you do is you just take it on the opposite side and run it through sort of like a dry run just to open up that hole. I'll do the other one too. There's a little bit of plastic barbing in there that makes it a tighter fit. But before we do that, notice that there's half of a hexagon lined up so that when you do torque these down, these don't just spin in their little sockets here. So you do want to make sure that that main ring is locked into, see if you can see that. It's locked into those, so you can't really spin it. There's the one, do the other. Maybe not. Try this again. It's not the easiest thing to do from the angle. There we go. So this guy's not quite seated correctly. What we need to do is just spin it a little bit. There we go. All right. So you end up with this. Nice and neat. And before we go any further, I'm going to tuck these wires down into these channels. And they just kind of clip in there like that. Get our fan wire out of the way. There's even two little holes at the bottom for these. All right, so you want to take your crush washers, the very thin, let's see if I can get this to focus, very thin brass one. That one goes first. Do that on both sides. The spring type is the next one. And that one will actually close up once you screw the locking washer on. And we're going to do that now. If you had an SMA tool, or if you have just like pliers, you can screw these on much tighter than I am right now just for this video. I'm just going to do it finger tight. I'll go back and do it later properly. It's really not that big of a deal though, so don't worry about that too much. All right, so that's good enough for this video. But that's the top case. Now we have to plug in our fan. And the fan plugs into the GPIO, which is this header here. And it plugs into pins, well, I don't know how they're numbered normally, but let's say from this top left portion, we have the USB on this side and this Raspberry Pi logo. From the top left, counting right, we have 1, 2, and 3. It plugs into pins 2 and 3, red being into pin 2 and black being into pin 3. So just like that. And when you go to close the lid, just kind of make sure your fan wire doesn't actually get caught in the fan. And other than that, I mean, you can kind of check through the clear case, which is nice. That's pretty much it. And you just kind of snap it shut gently. There's that side. Oh, see, my antenna connector is not lined up, so I just gotta slide that a little bit. And it's okay if your antenna connectors come out of these little tracks. I think they're just really designed to help you install it. But I mean, if you're a perfectionist, you can open this guy up, put them back in, try again. There you go. That's a little better. So if we remember correctly, the right side, or let's say the top one from this point of view, this is our 1090. This is our 978. So what you need to do is gently, this wire is pretty stiff, but just sort of gently figure out what the best way is to route this antenna and plug it in. That's our 1090 up there. And then down here is our 978. And it's getting pretty bright in here. See if that helps a little bit. As you can see, both are plugged in, and both are within the confines of this external shell of the back part of the case. So you just kind of put that guy on and slide it. That's it. And you can see it says open, so you just kind of push this top part and open it. There we go. That fits a little better. So just push down on this, and you can open and you can access this portion of the case. But even if you're not using this case for what I'm intending to use it for here with the ADSB, it's a really cool case. So if you want to protect your say you're running a flash drive as storage or something like that, it protects that portion of the case, and you don't have to run the fans. You can if you want. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And then you have all of the mounting options on the bottom. Here's the suction cups that are included. You just kind of, a little bit of over molding on the suction cup, but you just would just slide them in from the side. Then you can suction cup it to whatever. But for my use case, and since I got the tripod mount, the larger suction cup, I don't need the GoPro one, so I'm going to toss that one. We just need this piece for the back end. And there's a little tab right here, and that's where this this tab goes. So push down, slide like that. It's that simple. Take our tightening ring, tighten it down just a little bit, and then our screw-on tripod mount. See if I can get this guy in. There you go. Jeez. But yeah, that fits pretty snugly already. And then you can even tighten it down further, just so it really doesn't move. But I think it's a pretty slick case for 17 bucks. It's freaking cool. And then we have our antennas, which are indeed tuned for the certain frequencies. So here's our 1090. And remember, that's this side. You can just call this one the middle and this one the right side. So this guy just screws on. And same with our 978. Screw this guy on too. So yeah, that's our SDR and ADSB setup. There's not really much else to do with it other than get the software installed. But I haven't seen a whole lot of videos on YouTube about how to get these things set up. So hopefully this is helpful to someone out there. It's a really fun project. If you haven't done it, at least read up on it, because I think it's really, really cool. You know, for example, we had a lot of protests around here recently, and there's news helicopters flying around. So I can actually see the news helicopter and where it is. I'm like, oh, I know he's going to pass overhead. So I can actually like just walk it on my balcony and see him. So it's really cool. And also you're helping out, you know, the flight tracking like FlightAware, or I think the other one's Open ADSB or something like that. You can choose what sources you feed data to if you want to feed it all. You don't really have to, I guess, if you don't want to. But for those of you that are home labbers out there, you can feed the data into Grafana and make it a dashboard element. So that's really cool. Grafana is a rabbit hole I haven't really gone down yet. So I guess hopefully I will at some point. Maybe this will be the factor that pushes me to do that. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot to say about the hardware. Just make sure that you have a clear line of sight to the sky with your antennas. And that's why I bought the antenna extension with the magnetic base, because if you don't have a clear line of sight, ADSB signals just, they don't travel through walls, and even sometimes windows can inhibit them a little bit. Other than that, I guess that's pretty much it. Hopefully this video is helpful to you guys, and it will be a companion video to my guide on the forums about how to set up the software and the hardware. And if you think this is a long 30-minute video on how to just put a few pieces together, wait till you see the software, because there's some rabbit holes you can dig in there. And yeah, So that video would be really, really long if I did all that software on camera. But yeah, so if you have any questions, give me a shout on YouTube comments or in the Discord, or on Twitter. I've been using Twitter more lately at JDMWhat, same as my handle here, or in the forum thread where the guide is for this guy. Again, hopefully this was helpful to some of you guys out there, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.